Senator, thanks for coming back. You know, a lot of people won't. They get one dose of me and they go, never again. But here you are for a return appearance. I wanted to get your feeling about Attorney General Garland's testimony in front of the House committee yesterday. How did you process that?
Well, listen, these witnesses know how to evade, not provide the full truth. And, you know, the fact of the matter, I think Merrick Garland, just by and large, was willfully ignorant. I don't necessarily disagree with the fact that he knew nothing. And the more you learn about this investigation prosecution, it's just corrupt. And they're all kind of pointing fingers around each other that, you know, they have the authority, they didn't have authority. You know, Weiss might have had the authority, but he did not have the resources. And it's kind of almost a game of whack-a-mole. You know, well, I needed help out of California. I needed help out of D.C. But, well, he had the authority to potentially charge, but he didn't have the resources to send from Delaware to do the prosecution in California and D.C. So it's just one great big runaround. And I think it was a purposeful runaround. They didn't want to prosecute Hunter Biden. And this is the way they thought they could evade doing so and just kind of keep blaming somebody else for not being able to do it.
Well, the kicker of the whole thing was that Merrick Garland, at the end, had to review the plea deal that the judge threw out. He had to see, and he's a former judge, this absurd clause in the plea deal that said, well, federal government can never charge Hunter Biden with anything ever again, no matter what he does. And so for him, Garland, to say that, oh, I didn't have anything to do with it, I didn't intrude, he had to see that. And that angered me because I thought that was deceptive, that Garland, I have said this, he willfully, as you put it, didn't want to know anything. But at the end, he knew the fix was in. And he's being deceptive, and he's throwing Weiss under the bus. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I'm not sure he had to see it. I know Weiss did. You know, Weiss was ultimately responsible for
on a case this big, though, Senator. You don't think the Attorney General of the United States is going to know what the president's son is going to be charged with? Come on, he has to know.
Again, you would think so. I agree with that assessment. But Weiss certainly was in charge of it. You know, he's responsible for that sleazy plea agreement. And then what Merrick Garland for sure was responsible for was appointing the least independent human being on planet Earth to be the special counsel. Yeah. And if there's one requirement of a special counsel, it needs to be independent. David Weiss was not independent. He's the guy that allowed the statute of limitations to run out
and all
serious tax charges.
And that's just another facet. But here's another deception by the Attorney General. Estrada in California, U.S. Attorney, Graves in D.C., U.S. Attorney, wouldn't cooperate with David Weiss. They just wouldn't partner up with him. Garland could have ordered them to do it, and he did not.
He could have, and we also had an FBI whistleblower saying that Weiss's office didn't have the resources to do a proper investigation. I always assumed that whistleblower was talking about resources in the Delaware office. This may have been expanded to the fact that he didn't have access to the resources in California and D.C. to actually do the prosecution. Again, it's just a great big finger-pointing exercise, and I think it's a purposeful finger-pointing exercise so they could all evade the responsibility of doing their job and actually instituting equal justice under the law and
that's corruption.
Obvious tax evasion.
That's corruption. There's no doubt about it. Now, do you believe, based upon your Persian Senate, that Joe Biden, the president, is going to be hurt down the road by this Hunter Biden situation? Do you think there is more to come?
I think so. The key piece of evidence we need now are the personal bank records. I appreciate the fact the House, I think, is finally going to subpoena those because Senator Grassley and I showed the millions of dollars that transferred, into this labyrinth of shell companies, set up to money laundering. Let's be frank about it. But we've seen the money coming in. We needed to see the money going out. Now the House has already seen money going out to how many family members?
Right.
What do these people do to get all this money? Nothing. They're selling influence. Again, this is a grift. But we need to see and we need to untangle the money transfer from the Hunter Biden accounts where he said, Pop is taking 50% of his income. Well, we need to see those financial transactions to really get the hard evidence on Joe Biden. But again, it's just obvious that this is a grift. This is corrupt.
Okay, but the Biden administration is going to litigate that. They're not going to give up the president's financial records. They're just not.
Well, it's one of the reasons the House has an impeachment inquiry.
Is to get the authority to do it. It
causes the courts to adjudicate this more rapidly, and it gives the House a much stronger position to demand those records.
Now, the polls show that most Americans do believe that Joe Biden sold influence to benefit his family. And, about 43% of Democrats believe that. If you had to predict today, and I'm making you do it, how is this going to turn out? You're a Trump guy, so I assume you feel that he's going to get the Republican nomination, right?
Yeah, it sure indicates that, yeah.
Okay. On the Democratic side, you're seeing cracks from the Washington Post, the New York Times, on liberal television. Pelosi won't answer about Kamala Harris. You're seeing cracks. I don't think Biden's going to make it. I don't think he's going to be. I think he'll resign. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think there's almost zero chance that he'll be their presidential nominee. They're going to prevent a real primary from occurring so that the party bosses can select the person they think has the best chance of beating whoever the Republican candidate is. And at this point, it sure seems like it'll be President Trump. So they'll hold that out to the convention. They'll have a brokered convention. That could be interesting. There'll be a number of ambitious people that are going to want that. But in the end, the party bosses will decide who will be the candidate, just like they did for Joe Biden.
Right.
Back in 2020,
I know Amy Klobuchar, your colleague in the Senate, Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. Newsom will be in the mix. Anybody other names that you're hearing?
Well, we've heard Michelle Obama.
Right, but that's more of a.
Who knows? They will pick the person that cannot be vetted fast enough. That is going to, hopefully, from their standpoint, just skate into the presidency.
Yeah, but I don't know if Mrs. Obama wants to do it. I still can't define her, but she would be the most powerful. Final question for you. It is said that states like Wisconsin, which is, could go either way. It's a toughly competitive state, Michigan, others, are trending against the Democratic Party now, primarily because of economics, because people have to pay more for necessities of life. I think that's going to be a big factor coming up.
It will, but abortion still is a pretty potent factor in the 2022 election. I think it's probably what cost us the gubernatorial race. It certainly cost us the Supreme Court race in April this year. So if the Democrats can trot that out and energize their base, and they only have to energize their base in Madison, Milwaukee, Republicans have to get voters from the entire state. It's a much more difficult challenge. So we need a very strong ground game. Spend less on ads, spend a lot more on paid field staff, and run a really strong ground game.
Yeah, in Wisconsin. Okay. Senator, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for helping us out today.
Have a great day.